Hey everybody, this is Andre here covering for Kevin on the Kevin Breeze channel, and in this video, we're going to be doing a comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G and the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. These days, you can get both of these phones factory unlocked for all major carriers. To get more information on pricing and availability, or just to learn more about the devices in general, be sure to check the links in the description. These links will go directly to the phones on Samsung's website, and they usually offer great trade deals that you won't be able to find anywhere else. So the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G comes with a 6.7-inch Super AMOLED Plus display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 393, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 88.3%. The Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra has a 6.9-inch Dynamic AMOLED 2X display with a resolution of 1440p, a PPI of 496, an aspect ratio of 19.3:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 91.7%. So both of these phones have very large, high-definition displays, and both of them have really small bezels, which gives them a really nice modern look, and I really like that about them. The Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is definitely going to have a noticeably better display in general. The resolution and PPI are definitely a lot higher than that of the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G, and the screen-to-body ratio is definitely higher too. So the bezels are a lot smaller on the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. It's going to look a lot more modern, and the display is going to be a lot higher quality. On the other hand, this is a really big phone, and I know some people don't really like to have a phone that's that huge. And if you're looking for something that's a more manageable size, then the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G definitely has an advantage, because even though the screen is pretty huge as well, it's not quite as big as the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, and it might fit in your pocket better. You might be more comfortable holding it. I do know there's some people who definitely just have a problem with big phones in general. So if that's the case for you, the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G might be better. But overall, when it comes to the quality of the display, the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is definitely going to be a little bit better. It has a dynamic AMOLED 2X display instead of a Super AMOLED Plus display. It has a higher resolution in PPI, so all around, it's going to be a little bit better. That being said, both do have their advantages and both have really great displays. Now, both of these phones have a hole punch for the front-facing camera, which is really nice. I know that there's some variants of front-facing cameras these days, and the hole punch is personally my favorite. I think it really completes the look, especially since these phones have such small bezels. It makes them look really modern, and I like the style. At first glance, these both do look the same, but the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G has a 32 megapixel front camera, and the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra has a 10 megapixel front camera. Now, megapixels don't exactly determine which camera is better. The difference between the front-facing cameras on these two devices specifically is that the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra has a much better sensor than the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G, but they make up for that in the A71 5G's camera by giving it higher megapixels, so that way it really does even things out. So in theory, this will balance it out to the point where the quality of the cameras are pretty much the same. Now you're going to see later on that this may or may not be the actual case, but in general, both devices do have really good front-facing cameras. Now, both of these phones do have 128 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and this is definitely a great amount of storage. In comparison, the entry-level iPhone starts out at 64 gigabytes of internal storage, and it doesn't have the option to use a microSD card to expand that storage. So these phones both have an advantage over an entry-level iPhone as far as storage goes. To give you an idea of what this storage looks like in action, I do have a bunch of apps you might use on a daily basis downloaded onto these phones, and as you can see, it's really not taking up that much of the phone's storage. Neither of them are using any more than 22-23%, so you're going to have a lot of room for larger apps, lots of photos and videos, and whatever else you might be putting on the phone. Now, the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G does not have wireless charging, whereas the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra does have wireless charging. Now, both of these phones do have the option to use a fingerprint scanner or face unlock. Fingerprint scanners and face unlock are definitely really convenient features to use to unlock your phone, and it's nice to have both because depending on the activities you're doing throughout the day, one might be more convenient than the other. Let's give the fingerprint scanners a try now. We're going to start off with the Note 20 Ultra. Really nice. Let's try it one more time. Well, that was really fast and responsive, and I had no problems there. Let's try the A71 5G. As you can see, it's not really working too well. Let's try one more time. There we go. After about 4 tries, it did unlock. Let's try it one more time. So as you can see, the first time it took me 4 tries to unlock it with my fingerprint, and the second time it did lock me out. So in comparison, I would definitely say the fingerprint scanner on the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is a lot better than the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G. I typically don't have problems with fingerprint scanners even on the lower end phones, so I'm not quite sure why the fingerprint scanner on this phone is not working very well. But it is something to keep in mind if you do use a fingerprint scanner a lot. The Samsung Galaxy A71 5G does have an in-display fingerprint scanner that is similar to a lot of these higher end phones, but for whatever reason, it doesn't really work too well. It doesn't really recognize your finger all the time, and you might get locked out and you might have to use your PIN. I personally don't like using my PIN at all. I feel like it's a really archaic way to unlock a phone in 2021. And I prefer to use Face Unlock personally. But if you do use a fingerprint scanner, then be aware that the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G does not have the best fingerprint scanner, whereas the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra gave me no trouble whatsoever. And now we're going to take a look at the camera setup of each phone, starting with the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G. It has a 64 megapixel rear camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. Definitely some really great features on this camera. That's a feature that a lot of phones don't have, and if you do any type of photography, that's really going to come in handy. Now with the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, we have a 108 megapixel rear camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 12 megapixel telephoto lens. Now, not only is 108 megapixels really impressive for the Note 20 Ultra, but it also has a telephoto lens, which is really nice. With 50x hybrid zoom, you're definitely going to get some great pictures. And again, if you do photography, this is going to be a really good benefit for you. It doesn't have a macro camera, but at the same time with a telephoto lens, you're most likely going to be able to get those close-up pictures even without the macro camera. So this will make up for it. And now we're just going to go through a few features of each camera and see how they perform. Starting with the A71 5G, we are in the normal camera mode right now. So as expected with a camera like this, the image is really crisp, great quality. One thing I don't particularly care for is how the camera focuses. When you focus one way like this, for example, it's really bright and the background doesn't really look very vivid. Right now, there's a big glare that's covering everything except what it's focusing on. And when you focus out of it, it just turns super dark and gets a little bit out of focus. So I feel like it's manageable if you play around with the angle and everything, but it's really not too easy to use. There we go. It's focused perfectly right now and the image does look great. So it's definitely not bad, but you do have to play around with it a little in order to get the proper exposure. Now to go into ultra wide, you hit this button right here and you can get those wide angle photos. And of course, there's portrait mode right here. Let's take a look at the front-facing camera. So this is the front-facing camera. The image looks really crisp and I definitely like the quality. Let's check out the portrait mode. So the portrait mode looks really nice. The background is blurred tastefully. It's not too much, but at the same time, it really does work. And you can also control the degree of the blur, which I really like. Now, looking at the Note 20 Ultra, right away I can tell the image is a lot more crisp and the camera is noticeably more high quality. This camera definitely doesn't have the same exposure issue that the A71 5G had. You don't really need to put a lot of effort into getting the right angle as far as the exposure goes. It really just automatically goes into place. And even if I press somewhere weird, it still does focus on what it needs to focus on. To go into ultra wide, you hit this. Now this ultra wide mode is a bit wider and a bit better quality than the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G. The A71 5G did have a good ultra wide mode too, but it was a little bit more distorted, whereas this one looks a lot more clear and crisp. And now the telephoto lens. As you can see, it not only zooms in a lot, and this is only 5x zoom, it can go up to 50. It does have a really crisp image. Even though the phone doesn't have a macro camera, this is one way around not having it. You can really use the telephoto lens to zoom in on something and still get those super close-up detailed pictures without actually having a macro camera, and I think that's really cool. This is portrait mode, of course. And then this is the front-facing camera for the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. It definitely looks really great. You can tell that it's not quite as crisp as the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G, but at the same time, having a better sensor on the front-facing camera does make up for that. Even though the image isn't exactly as sharp, it's still great quality, if not better quality, than the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G. Let's take a look at the portrait mode. Now this is the portrait mode for the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. I honestly like the portrait mode for this one a little bit better than the A71 5G. The A71 5G was really great with the blur and how crisp the image was, but at the same time, for the Note 20 Ultra, the portrait mode really blends in. The subject and the background really do look like they're part of one picture, if that makes sense. Whereas with the A71 5G, it was still good, but in a way, if the blur was too sharp at certain angles, it really did look like it was just a green screen with a blurred background behind it, whereas this one really does look natural and more professional. So overall, if your main use for your device is lots of heavy content creation and photography and that sort of thing, I do think both are really great choices, but between the two, the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra does have the better camera. I would say even though it doesn't have a macro camera and the A71 5G does, the telephoto lens does make up for this because it still allows you to get those really close-up detailed images. So really, that's the main advantage that the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G really would have over the Note 20 Ultra. And in practice, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. Now, the only other thing is that the front-facing camera for the A71 5G does have higher megapixels, but as we saw in the demo, it really doesn't make a whole lot of a difference. You might see at certain angles the image look a little bit more crisp and a little bit more sharp, but at the end of the day, the Note 20 Ultra does have a better sensor, so that does make up for this. And with portrait mode, that's where that sensor really does come into play. As you saw with the A71 5G, the portrait mode did look good, but it was a little bit sharp. The contrast between the subject and the background, unless you controlled the blur a lot, was definitely super noticeable, whereas with the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, even though the background was very blurred like any portrait mode, it blended a little bit better and the colors just worked a little bit better for me. Now the video quality for these phones is a little bit different. One really good thing is they both can shoot in the same quality with their front-facing camera as they can with the rear camera. The main difference is the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G maxes out at 4K at 30 frames per second, whereas the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra maxes out at 8K at 24 frames per second. Now 8K is definitely significantly better than 4K, so if you're doing a lot of videography and that's something that's really important to you, then that's for sure something to consider. Now internally, the Samsung Galaxy A71 is getting 6 gigabytes of RAM with the Exynos 980 processor. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this specific variant of the phone is the unlocked variant. If you're getting it through a carrier, it's going to be a slightly different processor, which means there might be a slight difference in performance. But for the purposes of this video, this is the unlocked variant, and the unlocked variant does have 6 gigabytes of RAM with the Exynos 980 processor. The Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, on the other hand, has 12 gigabytes of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 Plus processor, which is significantly more powerful. I'm going to show you the Geekbench 5 benchmark test on both of these phones, and you'll see the difference in the performance. As you can see, the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is significantly faster, almost double that of the A71 5G on the multi-core score, with 3266 compared to the A71 5G's 1875. Now, this is going to make a huge difference depending on what type of activities you're doing. If you're just using a phone for basic purposes, then you might not really notice that much of a difference, because even though the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is a lot more powerful, the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G is still a very powerful device, so it's going to be able to do basic activities fine. Even moderate activities like light gaming and photo editing and content consumption, that kind of thing, it's really not going to make a huge difference between the two. You're still going to see some, but at the end of the day, not a whole lot. Now, if you're doing high performance activities like video editing, heavy gaming, and that sort of thing that takes a lot of processing power, that's where this difference is really going to show. Especially with large apps like complicated games that take a lot of processing power, the Samsung Galaxy A71 might start to struggle a little bit, whereas the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra that has almost double the processing power is probably not really going to struggle at all. That being said, especially considering the price difference, if you're considering getting a powerful device like the Note 20 Ultra, really think about how much processing power you need based on the activities you're doing. If you spend the money on the Note 20 Ultra, when based on your activities, you could have been perfectly fine with the A71 5G, then you're not going to get as much value out of it. That being said, you also don't want to get the A71 5G and find out that you need the processing power of the Note 20 Ultra. So again, really consider your activities and know what you need for them. Now, both of these phones have 4,500 milliamp hour batteries that support 25 watt fast charging, which is great. These are really powerful batteries that are going to get a lot of life out of them. And the fast charging is a nice benefit as well. So in conclusion, which of these phones is better? Well, as far as performance and specs and really everything else goes, the Note 20 Ultra is definitely going to be the better phone. As far as which phone you should buy, that is definitely a different story. Now, if you're using your phone for just basic and lower end activities, maybe occasionally doing more higher end activities like photo and video editing and light gaming, then the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G might really be all you need. This phone, again, has a really great, powerful processor, has a lot of nice features, and at the end of the day, even though it's not a flagship phone, it is a high-end phone that can do high-end activities. But if you need a lot of processing power, doing things like heavy gaming, lots of video editing, and that sort of thing, or your primary use for a device is content creation, so you really need the best camera and photography and videography features that a phone can offer, then the Note 20 Ultra might fit your needs better. But then keep in mind, this is really based on your activities, your needs, what works best for you. You're definitely not going to want to get the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G and find out that you need the processing power and camera features of the Note 20 Ultra. And at the same time, you're not going to want to spend the money on the Note 20 Ultra and then find out that you don't use half the features and you could have been perfectly fine with the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G. Now, although these phones are really close in a lot of different ways as far as performance goes, if you're on a little bit of a budget and don't quite want to go up to the Note 20 Ultra, there are some options in between these two devices that are going to give you some of the benefits with the Note 20 Ultra while still staying closer to the price range of the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G. A good example of this would be the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE. It has a really similar high-powered camera to the Note 20 Ultra, and it has quite a bit more processing power than the A71 5G as well. It's not quite at the level of the Note 20 Ultra, but at the same time, it doesn't cost as much either. So again, at the end of the day, both of these devices are great. It really just depends on the situation. As far as specs go, the Note 20 Ultra is definitely the better phone. But the Samsung Galaxy A71 5G, as far as its price and the value it provides, does come really close. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, if you want to get some more info on pricing and availability, or just learn more about the devices in general, be sure to hit the link in the description. These links will take you directly to the phones on Samsung's website. And a lot of the time, Samsung does have some great trade deals that you might not be able to find anywhere else. So that would be really great if you're interested in either of these devices. That being said, I will see you guys in the next one.